Welcome to Friends with Fertility, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of fertility, reproductive health, and all the emotional journeys that are in between. I'm your host, Elizabeth King, a fertility expert dedicated to providing you with the knowledge, support, and inspiration you need on your path to parenthood. Whether you're just starting out, exploring your options, or looking for solidarity and advice, we are here for you. Let's embark on this journey together and turn uncertainty into empowerment and make friends with fertility. Let's get started. Hello, beautiful friends. Welcome back to Friends with Fertility. Today we have Riki Lindhome. She is an actress, comedian, and musician. You may know her from the comedy duo Garfunkel and Oates, the series Another Period, Netflix's Wednesday, and films like Knives Out. Beyond the laughs, Riki has an extraordinary and honest story of becoming a mom after years of IVF, loss, and failed adoption. She ultimately welcomed her son via gestational surrogate and then did something so brave, she turned that journey into a deeply personal, funny, cathartic one, a one-woman musical called Dead Inside. We're discussing creativity as a coping mechanism, advocating for women's health, and exploring the various paths to motherhood. I am so excited for this conversation, and I hope you all enjoy. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. We now have Riki Lindhome with us. Welcome, Riki. Thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So what brought you down this path of fertility to begin with? Take us way back, because I feel like we all start from either as a child, we think all I ever want to do is be a mom or whatever. And then we have this idea in our head that doesn't always come to fruition. We think it's going to in the way that it does. So Tell us about your story.
Well, it's exactly that. I always wanted to be a mom, just always since I was a little kid. And I, had it in my head that I would do it like find a partner, have sex, have a baby in that order. Like that was my crazy plan. And when I was 34,
doesn't seem crazy because that's
I know,
what we all
it's like
are brought up as what's normal.
Totally. But when I was 34, I was still single and like this close to being the, geriatric pregnancy age. So
were you thinking that at 34? Like, were you consciously aware of like, oh my gosh, I'm almost 35? Or was it?
Like I wasn't panicked about having a baby, but I was like, it's time to check it out. I should check out myself and see what's going on there. Cause I'd never gotten, regular gynecologist doesn't really give you that intel.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I'll just go see what the deal is. And when I went to my first appointment, it was like already bad news.
Oh no. Okay.
Where
what did they tell you?
Just very, it's hard to really follow along because there's like this level, that level, this level. But generally I had, low FSH. I not a lot of eggs and they were not good quality.
Okay.
So those are like, basically not what you want to hear.
So when you walked out of there, did you have a sense of like, oh, this journey is going to be something I didn't expect? Or were you not really resonating?
Well, when I walked out of there, I walked out ready to start because I went in like on the right day. I went in like the first day of my period. I'd already done my blood work, but my meeting was like the first day of and they were like, do you want to start today? And I was like, let's go. Yeah, it was pretty intense because I was on tour with my band at the time. And so I was doing my hormones in like the LAX parking lot and stuff because you do them at the same time every day. And I just sort of jumped in. It wasn't like that much of a tour. We went on 3 dates, but it was I just sort of like threw myself in, not really knowing anything, and then had my surgery and it like I didn't really get any eggs. So I had to do it 2 more times that year. Before I had eggs.
And how did it go round 2, round 3?
They went better. I think I like there's like little things you can do. I was just it wasn't gonna go great just because of my numbers, but I think it was better than just like throwing myself in and like being in Nebraska and just, it was maybe just too much for my body, but the second 2 rounds went better. And so I had like a little reservoir of eggs and that made me feel like, just like I had insurance, which I did not, but at the time I felt like I did.
Right. I kind of went through a similar thing at 36 too, where I froze 11 eggs and was not able to use those either. But so I get what you mean about like, okay, I always say it was like my 401k check, eggs frozen check. Okay, now let's go on.
And I was like, I've got it. I'm all good. And then,
So
and then it's just
what happened after that?
So I went back to plan A, trying to meet someone, and I did. And we tried for a long time naturally to have a baby. Well, no, that's not true. Uh, we got pregnant kind of right away. And
Okay.
then there was a lot of issues with the pregnancy.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
there was a lot of I actually made it to the second trimester, and
Oh.
there was issues where it wasn't going to survive to term,
Mm,
and so I had to have a DNC at 13 weeks. It was like awful. I mean,
that is
I don't know
awful.
if
I'm
you've
so
had
sorry.
that, but it's
I have.
horrifying.
Yeah. I'm
It's
so sorry you had
heartbreaking.
to go through that.
Yeah, and so then we, you know, started to really like, we did everything after like ovulation sticks and acupuncture, and I had to have surgery on my uterus to fix the scarring from the DNC,
Oh,
and I had
no.
just all these I ended up having 7 surgeries in 1 year
Oh, no, Ricky,
to
that's
sort of like
awful.
fix the complications, but we were
That's so
still trying,
frustrating.
and it was really frustrating. We were still trying, and then like 2 years into trying, we had a frozen embryo, and we were about to implant it, and my partner changed his mind. And so then I was like, "Oh."
Plot twist.
Yeah, plot twist. So,
Oh, wow.
yes, I went back to the original, eggs that I had, and, they didn't take.
Okay.
So then it was like, "Okay, now what?" And, found out then that I had silent endometriosis, which I didn't know was a thing. I don't know.
Okay.
Do you have any endometriosis in your
I don't.
history of Mhm.
Mm-mm.
Silent is really hard to catch. It's hard
All of it is hard to catch. It's like
it's all
one of
hard
the
to catch.
most misdiagnosed, let alone if you have it as silent
Right.
endometriosis. So, yeah, continue. Share with our
And for
audience who
people
may
who don't
not
know,
know.
silent just means there's no pain, and the
No
only symptom
symptoms.
is infertility. So people don't know
Right.
to check for it because there's no pain, and normally it's super painful, and, I was not in any pain, and so, um, I was getting myself checked out for that because I'd wanted to carry donor embryos, and then they were like, "No, you also can't carry." So I'm like, "Okay."
Oh,
Um,
I mean,
yeah.
how I can't imagine having that. Like, how does that news land for you? Is that like, were you already prepared for that
I
to
wasn't. Like,
come?
I'm
Okay.
such an optimist that every piece of bad news was a complete surprise, which
Okay.
is, like, sort of a painful way to live, but that's just my personality. Like, when I found out I had a low egg count, I'm like, "That's crazy. Like, that can't be me." I just couldn't I just always thought everything would work out.
Hmm.
And, when my partner and I broke up, I was like, "What?" It all felt, like, so incongruous, and that I didn't really even process it at the time. I was like,
Right.
I kind of thought I could get away without processing it, which, spoiler alert, I could not. But at
Right.
the time, I was, like, just goal oriented, and I was like, "I'm gonna
Of
figure out how
course.
to have a baby," and I was just plowing forward alone in a pandemic, you know, not
Couldn't
really
have
like
been worse timing,
no.
right?
No, my partner and I broke up late February 2020.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So, yeah, I did the implant alone. I did, and I tried to adopt for a long time. That was very hard as a single woman in a pandemic.
Okay.
I
And
didn't
was
realize that was
adoption
hard.
always something that you were open to? Because I know a lot of people who are going down the road of fertility, they know pretty quickly, like, I am either open to this or I'm not open to this with adoption. Were you kind of anything to be a mom, or did
Totally.
it
I mean,
take
I
you a
had my
while
like
to?
first choice was obviously to, fall in love and have a baby on my own.
Of
Like
course.
that's what I wanted. But like, it's like anything else. Like, how many times do we get our first choice? Like, a, a lot of people do, but like, what's your, I don't want to have no choice. I
Right.
want, like, I go, okay, because like, once you have I know friends who've adopted, and it doesn't make a difference. Like,
Right.
at least not to the friends that I have. They were like, "Oh
Of
yeah, no,
course.
I worried and worried and worried." And then the second I had my child, I was like, "Oh, oh
This is amazing,
I'll
and it's
jump in front of a bus for this. Like, I don't know
right.
how I could love it more. I don't,
Yeah.
And everyone I talked to had that experience, and so I was like excited. But I pursued that for a long time. I had some failed adoptions. It was really hard as a single woman, which I didn't realize. I thought it would be. I just thought
Just
there's
because
lots.
the agencies or whoever you were trying to adopt from was like a judgment about being single,
Well,
or
there
what do
is,
you
like,
mean?
when you look up the statistics, it's the easiest to adopt when you're a straight couple, then a gay couple, then a single woman, and then a big fall off before a single man. There's like
Okay.
the how long it takes and the type of matches you get. Um, it's it's a hard, and I was already like not realizing I was like already like almost in menopause. I was dealing it with alone in a pandemic. I had all these hormones from like the surgeries, and so I was
Oh
like
my gosh.
not
Just hearing you
emotionally
say all
handling.
that
Yeah,
feels
I
so
was not, and I
heavy.
was alone, so I was not emotionally handling the failed adoptions very well. And then
I
like
would
that's when
think
I started to
so.
be like, oh gosh, I'm dealing with this all at one moment. And I just sort of, fell into kind of despair.
Did you have like that on the bathroom floor moment, or was
Oh
it
yeah.
like a like
Yeah.
for me, I feel like I look back and I was like, oh, clearly I was depressed and I didn't realize I was, or I was
Mhm.
postpartum and I thought I was just in the pandemic and I was just stressed like everybody else. So
Mhm.
it took me to get on the other side of it to see what was going on.
Yeah.
Were you aware in that moment that this was happening?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't aware about the menopause thing, but
Uh-huh.
I knew my hormones were crazy. And yeah, I thought I was, you talk to friends and it's like, oh, everyone's depressed. Like the
Right.
world is in
It's
full
normal. Yeah.
turmoil. So I thought I
Yes.
was like just part of the
Same.
world. And I was like, oh no,
Hmm.
I'm very sad. I'm very
Hmm.
sad. And I had to sort of mourn each thing that didn't work out
Right.
all at once. I don't know if did you have that where it all sort of hit you, or were you more waves?
I was more waves again because it, I thought it was just life that was happening to everybody too. I
Mhm.
wasn't recognizing that it was me specifically until after the fact. But when I was going through the fertility portion of it, because I had just had my baby then, but when I was going through the fertility portion of it, I was like you were saying before, I was just very determined. I knew I didn't have a lot of time. I was like, we got to make this happen. What are we going to do
Mhm.
next? And even after the losses, not holding the space to mourn those because I didn't have
Right.
time. I was like this desperation of like, we got to figure out what's next and what do we do now? Um,
God, I could not relate more. There is a weird thing where you don't let yourself grieve because you biologically don't have time to.
yeah,
And then you
it's
think, "Oh, I can kinda skip over that." And it's like, "No, it's waiting for you." But I it's the
right,
same thing where it's like you just don't, it's like in an emergency, you don't have time to grieve what you're losing. You have to get out of the burning building. You have to get through it, you know? I
right.
had a
And now
similar.
it's interesting because I try to help people to hold the space for that during the moment while also planning what their next steps are. Because I have still dealt with people that are 20, 30 years past losses and stuff that they are saying they never grieved that. And it still holds something to them, right? That sadness and mourning that hasn't quite been able to express itself the way it should because it was like this crazy time of life. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I never dealt with that at all.
Mhm.
And I still think for me, had I not really gone full in on fertility work, that would have been my situation too, because I was with, 3 kids and it was just crazy. And
Mhm.
it was like I had to force myself to be like, no, this is big stuff that nobody prepares you for, and
It's
you need
that
to,
nobody talks about, no one prepares you for, and there's so much shame and there's so much secrecy, and
oh
so
my
many
gosh.
people, not because they're not friends or bad people, but they don't know what to say to you. And then sometimes it makes it worse where like when someone jumps immediately to advice before going, "I'm so sorry," where they go, "The thing you need to do," where they don't realize they're subconsciously telling us it's our fault.
Right.
When like I'm fine with advice and I'm if that's what I'm seeking, but it was like
Right.
I've a lot of my well-meaning friends were like, "Okay, what your the problem is," and I'm like, "But my problem was I had low FSH. I was in early menopause and I had endometriosis." But
Right.
in my mind, I was like, "Oh, it's because I work too much. It's because of my personality. It's because of my failings as a woman." That
Right.
was the message that was being sent to me.
Which I firmly believe that is like a lineage thing. I talk about this all the time of like women as a collective from thousands of years. If you couldn't bear a child for the king or the queen. You were sent away and someone else was brought in and you were
Mhm.
meant to feel ashamed and guilty and not worthy. And
Mhm.
I feel like we still carry this. And it wasn't until after my first miscarriage that I'm like, why do I feel this way? Like logically, I know it's not my fault,
Yeah.
but I felt like it was my fault.
Mhm.
And then I had this like huge awakening of, oh my gosh, this isn't even like me specifically. It's like women as a whole collective that has carried this burden or whatever around performing to have childbirth, or
Mhm.
carry the baby. And it's such a powerful energy that's like beyond us. And the more that we
Yeah.
continue to talk about it and be like, no, this happened, this is so normal and it doesn't make
Mhm.
you any less, for men and women too, for
Yeah.
that matter, but
Mhm.
mainly women, because historically that's where the shame came from, right? Of
Yes.
like, you got to go away, and number two is coming in to perform or whatever the
Right.
situation is. But yeah, so I think that a lot of that is just processing energetically
Mhm.
those emotions and stuff that sometimes
Well,
don't
the
even
myth of
belong
that
to
whole,
us.
like, "It'll happen when you stop trying," is, like, that is my least favorite. Where I'm like, "Okay," because it's the same people. If I was not trying, the same people would tell me that I needed to be doing A, B, and C. I'm like, I either way, it's my fault, is how I felt. And so what I did instead of, um, finding my right community, my first step was to stop telling anyone anything, which I would not recommend. But it was just a survival of my heart, because I was like, I couldn't take any more people subconsciously telling me it was my fault. So I just completely did it all by myself, which isn't great. And then I realized I had to find community. So I had a friend that had posted about a miscarriage on Instagram, and I called her and I was like, "Hi." Um, and we talked about it, and we started telling each other. She was the person I would tell when something happened, when I'm like, "Oh, I'm having a surgery. I'm doing whatever it was." And I started telling her when I had a miscarriage so that I could be seen and held, and like without someone telling me it was my fault. And yeah, I don't want other people to have that. I want people to have many people that they can talk to.
Right. And I think it makes such a difference, at least it did for me, to know that somebody else went through it, right? Because I
Yeah.
had actually gone to a therapist that who specialized in miscarriage loss because I was so depressed. And as a therapist, a lot of them have this boundary that they don't tell you about their personal life or whatever.
Right.
And so I remember going away from there like more devastated because I'm like, I don't know if she's ever had a baby. I don't know if she's gone through this. I needed somebody to say, I know what that feels like. And it
Right.
sucks. And I'm sorry you're dealing with that and you'll get through it and, whatever. Um,
Mhm.
and so I think finding that person like you found that had been through it, whether it's a whole community or one person, I think really does make such a huge difference to help you heal. And like you said, feel seen through the process.
Yeah, and not feel like it's your fault and so alone and it's so endless. And the problem with a a child is you either have one or you don't. There's not really an in between. It's not like with a job, you get your second choice job. It's not like that. You either have that or you don't. And and I did not, at the
And
time.
I think it's so much more than that. At least it was for me, because it was like the story in your head that you build up around it, right? So, especially if you are pregnant and then you lose that baby, right? You're like, okay, my baby's going to come in September and I'm going to
Right.
have this car seat and I'm going to do this and that, whatever. So, it's like the story around it as well that you hold on to, that hope, more so than just like the cup in front of you that you lose the cup. Like, it's
Yeah, you
so
lose
much
like
more than
the
that.
whole life that they would have had.
Right.
And yeah, it's like it doesn't really go away.
Hmm. I'm
It's a
so sorry.
strange no, but it is interesting just talking about now, because I do have a child now and I feel very happy and lucky, but the losses you have leading up to it, they still are there.
Of course. Yeah. And I think that that's the other thing that people don't realize, that it gets different when you have a baby, when you have one like here.
Yes.
Um, but it never goes away as far as for me, it hasn't. Like I
Me
remember
either.
when I got those positive pregnancy tests. I remember when I felt like something was wrong. Like you remember
Mhm.
the significant moments and you remember the times that the baby was supposed to be born, and you remember a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I do think that it gets easier because it's not so raw when
Mhm.
after you have a baby, but it's still there. And that's why I really suggest working through the grief, regardless of whether it happened to you last week or
Totally.
years ago, because it is a death,
Mhm.
and it's a different type of death than we deal with normally. We
Mhm.
don't often have an explanation for why it happens.
Mhm.
And that alone is hard to come to terms with because you
Yeah.
want to know, well, what can I do different next time so this doesn't happen again,
Right, and even saying that
etc.
means it's your fault, you know?
Right, right,
There's, like, some things you can do, but there's only so much, like, there's so much we don't know. There's so many reasons medically why one pregnancy works and it doesn't, and it's just still we're still in, like, a mysterious time medically. Like, maybe in 100 years, they'll have reasons, but we don't have them yet.
right. And that to me can be even more frustrating, right? When you
Mhm.
do the DNC and you have them test the tissue and they're like, oh, everything's normal. And you're like, well, obviously it wasn't,
Right.
So
So
I
what
need,
happened?
yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened? And
Mhm.
then the post traumatic stress that comes after, it's a lot. And so I think the bottom line of this segment is just to have support and know that you don't have to go through it alone.
Yeah, and that's how I ended up being like this accident. It was just people the way that I called my friend who had posted, people had friends of mine had known all the different things I'd gone through, and so their friends would start calling me. They'd be like, "My cousin is going through this. Can she call you?" And I started accidentally being this like, I don't have any information, but just like an advocate for them, without I didn't have any knowledge other than personal experience, but like I would just relate to them about it and, you know, try to give them what they needed. And it like blossomed into like me creating this show. Now I have this musical about fertility that I do, and it's just an extension of that. It's like being like, I want people to talk about this. I'll go first, you know?
So how did that come up? You're sitting at home and you're like have been talking to people about this and you have this
Yeah.
idea. How does that come
Just like
about?
one person after the other, after the other, after the other. And I, at any person who had anything happened, I had a similar story because I'd been through so many different iterations of this. And um, yeah. And then I've been writing musical comedy for like 15 years. So I was like, what if I try to make this like funny or like relatable? Like what? And I just like slowly like dipped my toe into like writing the songs, and then it just kind of kept going and it came out so fast. It
That's
was,
amazing.
yeah. Like there's a song about not getting over it. There's like a sad song about that. And then there's like a funny song about calling someone and asking them for sperm. And there's just all these there's a song about the history of women's medicine, which is crazy,
That's
just
so it sounds so fun, but
yeah.
obviously so deep at the same time, and it's called Dead Inside.
Yes. Which
And
like the title's a trigger warning, but it's like that's not really what it's about. It's not about dead babies. It's about,
I didn't
the
think that didn't cross my
no.
mind, but I was curious with
Yeah,
what it's
it's
about.
about how you feel, going like you're not your body's not doing what you want it to do. It's not, and you don't know why, and the isolation and all that kind of stuff. But then it's also a comedy. So
And at what stage in your journey did you start writing, and when did it come to fruition of being complete
it wasn't until
within your
after I had a
journey?
child. After I had a
Okay.
baby, and I was still doing all these calls with people, I was like, let me just try it. And it took about a year to write. And then I did it at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival last year. And now I've just been touring with it ever since. I just did 5 weeks in DC. It's just, I was so surprised because it's such a dark topic, but it's clearly one. I mean, I'm sure you've realized from your community that it's something people want to talk about and
And
hear
it's something
about.
that we need to talk about,
Mhm.
right? So I
Mhm.
think that's the big takeaway is you may not be ready to talk about it right now, but there's outlets for you to talk about it. And if you can open that door and invite somebody to watch this or go to it who
Mhm.
may be a friend of a friend who's gone through it, just opening the conversation is going to transform your journey and the people around you, right? Everybody
Mhm.
knows somebody who's going through it. And I think
Yeah.
to take aside from comedy and try to look at it in a different way, also is really helpful, right? To know
Mhm.
that there is you're able to laugh despite the pain, right? Because when you're in that moment of being in it, you don't feel like you're ever going to be able to get to that point again.
No, it feels like
So
there's no end, and yeah.
take us back to you. Now you have your baby, but how
Mhm.
did you get to your baby?
So I was trying to have donor eggs and sperm and carry a baby, and then I found out I that wasn't going to work either. And so I pursued adoption and surrogacy at the same time to try to see like what would happen. And the surrogacy thing happened so fast. It was like in days I matched with someone. I was like, because they said the average was a year, so I was like, okay, I'll start looking into this. And it was so fast, and then, we did an implant, and the first implant, she got pregnant, and it was like, "Oh," because I had these donor embryos, and I was like, "Whoa," and so it just ended up working, and it was, a real surprise. And obviously, that's, like, not a route that everyone would take. That's a really extreme route, and it's a really privileged route, and I know all that, but, that is my journey, that is what happened, and, I'm so happy it did.
Well, I also think that we're trying to move the needle of that as well, right?
Mhm.
For people to know that there's grants and funding and other options and ways that they can get to do that if that's something that is needed for them as well.
Mhm.
And again, having the conversation and talking to other people that have gone through it to say, oh, maybe you should check this out or that agency out or whatever. There are options. It's you just
Mhm.
got to dig a little harder probably to find them.
Yeah.
But I think that the conversation that it's possible and then you love this baby no matter what and it's amazing is the fact that we live in a world that this can happen
It is
is
wild.
incredible.
This from the second I met him, it was just like, "Oh." Like, I had the weirdest reaction because I started to, like, not be an optimist and catastrophize, and, like, I really thought something was gonna go wrong at the birth, and then and she was having a C-section, and I was weeping, and I just uncontrollably, like, thinking like, knowing that something was gonna go wrong. And then when they handed him to me, I stopped crying. I was like, "Oh, there you are." It was very, like, relaxed. It was the opposite reaction of I thought I would cry when I had the baby, and I was like, "Ah, hi." I was like, "Can we go do this now? Like, can we begin?" You know? It felt
That's
more
so
like that, which was interesting.
that's so beautiful. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing your story. I know it's
Yeah.
like such a wild ride to be on, but I think again having the conversation open and sharing is such a huge healing process for not only us that have been through it, but those that are
Mhm.
listening and going through it to say, oh, that's part of my story too, or it's possible. And you have your baby at the end. And there's a lot of ways
Yeah.
to get to your baby that we don't always think is the way that it's going to go down.
Right.
And I think
And that
that's
when you get the
also,
baby, it really doesn't matter, at least not for me. It did not
I
matter
have
at all.
I have yet to see that it matters to anybody, no
Mhm.
matter what, if they've done anything,
Yeah.
at all. I've never ever heard or seen anybody that's like, oh, this mattered.
Mm,
Never.
and I know it's a loss when you can't have your own, but then it really does that was the one like, the loss of, other pregnancies, like, that still hurts my heart, but the loss of not being able to have a genetic child, I don't feel that at all. Like, that just goes away. Like, it's just,
And
like,
I
nothing.
I think that is what's common too that I've noticed. Once people make that decision of like, I'm going to do donation or I'm going to do
Mhm.
whatever, it's like from that moment on, it changes
Yeah.
and you're no longer mourning that anymore because you're moved on to your baby that's coming.
Right.
And I have heard also whether it's sperm donation, egg donation, surrogacy, that the surrogacy, it just depends on how long you take to match, right? But
Mhm.
then once you do match, it goes so fast.
Yeah.
And so I tell people like get ready because once you do make that decision, and
Mhm.
sometimes just making the decision can take a little while, but then once you find the match or the donor or whoever it is that you're going with, it happens really fast most of
Yeah,
the
and I had
time.
guilt about the decision because I was like, "No, I should stay. I should just keep trying to adopt. I should just keep trying." And my mom was actually the one that called it. She was like, I think we've been through enough pain now.
Oh, good for her.
And she's like, I think you have an option that a lot of people wish they had. And
Yeah,
you need to stop feeling guilty about doing it. Like, so many people would love to be able to do that. And
100%.
this journey is over. We're going to do this. And I was like, okay, then.
And that's awesome because I feel like I remember too. I wish I had somebody to tell me what to do in some of those
Yes.
moments, right? So good for
Mhm.
you for your mom stepping in to be like, nope, this is what we're doing.
Mhm.
There's so many times where I wished I could have somebody just tell me what to do. In fact, I was talking to a client yesterday and she's like, my husband's kind of open to whatever. And I'm like, that's how my husband was too. But I wanted him to be like, no, we're doing this, or we're doing
Right.
that.
Here we go.
So
Yeah.
yay for your mom.
Yes.
That's good. Well,
That's right.
again, thank you for sharing your story. Where can people
Yeah.
find you, see your show? Tell us a little
Riki
more.
Lindhome is my handle on social media, and I have a bunch of songs about fertility. Like, they can, like, if you do want to, like, have the catharsis of that, I have an album called No Worries If Not, because it's not for everyone, and there's a lot of fertility songs on there, and I have a song about pregnancy loss that, like, a lot of people have reached out to me they that helped, that made them feel good in their heart. And yeah, and my show's called Dead Inside. I don't know what city we're going to next, but I'll be posting about it once I know. So
So fun. And what a like amazing mark to leave on the world, with all that you're doing, but then this specific little niche in the world that, affects people so often. It's
mhm.
like so cool that you were able to give us all this beautiful gift with the songs and the show and now your son here and all
Yeah.
of that. That's so
Thank
cool.
you. Thank you. And you too. It's amazing meeting so many people in this world. It's like the best women. It's
I
like,
know.
yeah, it's the
It's
worst club with the best members. It's like that saying. Yeah.
and and it's like why haven't we been talking about this, right? It makes me want to uncover all the grandparents and people that have like not talked about
Mhm.
what they've been through, and it's like it's time to stop not talking about these things anymore,
Yep. I
and
agree.
not feeling the shame and guilt. And it's just, I'm a mom of boys. I want
Mhm.
them to know, like, this is common, this is going to happen,
Mhm.
and be prepared for it. So it's not just for women either.
No,
It's the more we talk about it for everybody, the easier it is when they're going through it. So
I
I'm
agree.
so excited that we got to talk today,
Me
and I
too.
look
Thank you for
forward to
having
connecting
me.
again soon.
Me
Yes,
too. Thank you. Have the best day.
you too. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Friends with Fertility. We hope that you found the stories, insights, and tips as inspiring and informative as we did. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Your friends with fertility are here for you. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and more fertility resources. Until next time, stay hopeful and keep believing in your journey, and know that we are sending you lots of love.